Welcome, everybody, to this edition of CPG Insiders. I'm your host, Mark Young, with my co host, Justin Gerard. And
And
Justin, we're going to have a talk today about what we internally we refer to as the three levers, but it's really the only three paths to retail.
yeah,
And by the way, I'm very colorful today, aren't I?
it's-
I'm not
and
sure. Is it colorful or does it just look like I ran into a paintball battle or something? I'm not.
you know what? What it says to me is that you are way more sophisticated than I am, and I need to start going through your wardrobe because I need to step up my game. That's what it
I,
sounds like.
I think it expresses an air of confidence, doesn't it?
It sure does. Yeah. I'm more confident knowing you look like that. I can tell you
Now
that.
you notice up there my new Captain America shield up on the wall too.
That thing is pretty awesome. I wish everyone could actually see it up close.
It's
It's
pretty
really
cool.
cool. It's really cool.
All right, so we're going to talk about the three roads into retail. So what we're going to start with here, folks, we're going to start talking about SKU rationalization, and this is a thing. And what it does is it is the way for retailers to decide how to maximize the number of dollars that they get from an assortment while minimizing the number of SKUs it takes to accomplish it.
Mhm.
So it's simply this. Let's say we have 10 items in our assortment and we do $10 million. If I can define that I could reduce the 10 to 9
Mhm.
and do $9.8 million,
Right.
I'm going to cut that 10th item because remember, each item was doing a million. I can now go add another $1 million item, and now I'm up to $10.8 million.
Right.
Now, I may not even add that item in this category. I may have
True.
just made room on the shelf for the category next to this category for them to expand because they're in a hotter category than I'm in.
Yep.
So it's simply this. I have three mouthwashes. I have spearmint, peppermint, and cinnamon. And what I'm trying to rationalize is if I don't carry cinnamon, which I think is a terrible flavor for a mouthwash, by the way, if I don't have cinnamon, will people leave my store and go to another retailer, or will they pick up the spearmint? So if I can determine they'll just pick up the spearmint, I'm going to drop the cinnamon.
Yeah, exactly. It's what we've talked about in many other shows. Retailers are limited by space. As you said before, they're in the real estate business. I need to maximize the amount of dollars that I can create per square inch in my store because that's what I'm limited to. That's the name of the game. So how do I continue to get more dollars out of the space that I currently have? And they're going to continue to try to find different ways in order to accomplish that.
Now, if you're a regular listener here, you've heard us talk about before, stop making more SKUs. And the reason is, I'm going to use that as the example. Let's say I have spearmint and wintergreen and cinnamon. But let's say I first started off as spearmint
Mhm.
and I became a successful SKU. Then I went back to the retailer and I'm like, look, I have two more flavors. Does that mean you're going to sell 3 times more mouthwash? Or does that mean you just divided your customer base to 3 SKUs from one?
Right,
Because you had one successful SKU. Now you have 3 failing SKUs.
right. So all of a sudden you went from a hero to a zero.
And it is possible to end up with all 3 of them delisted.
Yes, because as you've talked about, if if the retailer can show that there are other items, especially if you're a challenger brand, right? So if you're not the P&Gs of the world who have so much more control over the shelf space, they have more products, more leverage, and they can come in and they can just do whatever they want many times. If you're not them, which most of our listeners are not, means that you're fighting to hold on to the space that you have. So if there's another challenger like you that can show that, hey, look at my sales compared to this over here, and the retailer says, "Yep, you're gonna make me more money," you're gone.
Now, you want to have a little talk here about the buyer and the buyer's needs.
Yeah, so what I want to talk about is so again, picture in your mind. So you, as we just talked about, from the highest level, the retailers are trying to make as much money as they possibly can with the space that they have, right? So that pressure is coming all the way from the top down to the bottom, and what I mean by working through the layers. And so the category buyers are and the ones that you are directly working with, they're the ones on the bottom there that are feeling that pressure that it's their job to continue to make as much money as they possibly can with the space that they have, right? So think of the position we kind of talked about for you in the brand space. Now think of it for them that they have this amount of shelf space. And so they have to make as much money as they possibly can with the shelf space that they have, understanding that other categories who might be getting hotter, maybe stealing their shelf space. Well, if they lose shelf space, they lose money, right? And they don't want to lose money because that not only does that look bad to them personally if they're trying to have their own career aspirations, but they're also losing money. Nobody wants to lose money. So these buyers are under constant pressure to perform, to continue to sell more product in their space, and they also have to serve multiple masters as we talked about, right? Because depending on the category you're in, you have the major CPG brands that do have leverage that can have these negotiations and conversations with you. So you have to kind of try to navigate that. Then you've got your VP, and then they're up, and you're trying to make sure that, hey, maybe one day I want to be a VP, right? So I've got to look really good. So not only do I have to sell a lot of product, but one way to do that is to bring in the next big thing, right? If I'm in the beverage space, am I the buyer that the first discovered liquid death, as an example? I look really good, right? So then that's going to propel me up. But, right? I still have to defend my space first because I assure you, more people lose their jobs by taking major risks than they do by mitigating risks and working with what they have and maintaining what they have. So these buyers are not only, they're people too, right? They have this constant pressure on them. So when you walk in the door and you're saying, well, I've got the next big thing, most of the time, which is normal, right? We're thinking about our opportunity. We're thinking about how what Walmart's going to do for me and my business and my brand. But you have to remember that the person on the other side of the table is thinking about their life and their mortgage and their future. And so you have to do your best job to walk in there and show them and mitigate that risk to say, hey, putting my product on the shelf is going to make you more money and I can prove it. And that not only will ensure that for you by doing the work and proving it, which we'll get into later, that you're confident that this is actually going to achieve the goals that you have in your mind. For that buyer, now they say, well, this is a no-brainer for me. Yeah, let's go forward, but you have to make it a no-brainer. That's on you to do. And that's another human on the other side that you have to work with and partner with, not just sell.
Well, like with any negotiation, a good negotiation shouldn't be about I'm trying to overcome you or
Right.
manipulate you or try to sell you. A good negotiation should be I'm trying to find a way for us to work together so we both win and we both get what we need.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
need to get my product on the retail shelves. That buyer needs to expand the profitability and the sales of their category.
Hmm.
So how do we both end up getting what we need? And of
Exactly.
course, we do that by having great products and good pricing and great advertising, and lots of things go into that. So let's talk about the three roads, the three pathways in.
Yeah.
And I want you to pay really close attention, especially you guys that are new to getting distribution, because if you violate this, you're not getting in.
It's no, these are the only ways in. Okay.
This is it.
Yeah.
So the first category we're going to call the category expander.
Hmm.
Category expander is an easy one to understand. It's the companion product. It is the eye cream to the face cream. It is the conditioner to the shampoo. It is the silicone spray before using the flat iron. It is how do I get people to buy another item to go with?
Right.
something they're buying.
How do I get them to walk out of the store with two items instead of just one or three, whatever the case may be?
Right. Is it a new seasoning? Is it a new hot sauce? Is it something they weren't buying before? So
Yes.
the buyer can look at this and say, okay, this is an extra item in the shopping cart that I was not putting in a shopping cart before.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of them leaving with 10 items now, they leave with 11 items. So that's one way you do this. And we're working with a client right now that will be a category expander.
That's good. It's exciting.
But keep in mind, being a category expander is somewhat rare.
It is rare and it can be risky, right? Because this gets back to also one of those rules that we talked about in the last show is do not mistake your product and think it's a category expander when it may just be a product that actually doesn't solve a problem or fit a need. It only fit the need that you saw. So there are very rare occasions where one, you're actually a category expander, like the examples that we talked about, or you've actually discovered a new category. That happens. It's very rare,
Mhm.
right? Or work, as you talked about, there's a client that we're going to be moving with that is completely created a new category,
Yep, blue
but it is
ocean.
it's very rare. It's very rare that that happens. So just don't mistake it for I've got the latest thing and I think it's great. And it's like, well, it's great only to you. That's not a
Yeah,
category expander.
another example would be you were the first retail brand for glucosamine.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so you had this assortment of vitamins. There was no glucosamine on it. You were the first brand that came out with glucosamine for joint
Mhm.
health. That's a category expander because last month no one was buying glucosamine because it
Right.
didn't exist.
Right. And now all of a sudden they are. So you're accomplishing that exact goal. So that can be a road in.
Yeah, and this does frequently happen in the supplement area.
Yeah.
Um, what's the other one I'm thinking of? The hair and nail ones that really blew up. Biotin.
Biotin. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
biotin blew up. Glucosamine blew up.
Right. I mean, in
Um,
the nutritional space, when all the keto supplement products started coming out, right?
keto, probiotics.
Yep, that was a big expander.
So again, another example would be you were the first probiotic yogurt in the
Right.
yogurt cooler.
Right.
So all of a sudden, okay, this is a new item.
Right. So again, if you can prove, especially in today's age, where the e-commerce space has now become such a large space from a consumer purchase standpoint. It's very well possible that you have discovered a what we'll call a category expander that right now only exists in the e-commerce space because that moves a lot faster than retail. If you can prove that, then yes, this is the pathway for you to show, hey, no one's buying this stuff in your store right now. They're only buying it here. Let me be the first one. You can use the pressures of Amazon. I don't mean this as a tactic, but it is, right? Because retailers are paying attention to Amazon. So if you can show that, hey, by the way, Amazon's making all this money in a category that doesn't exist in your store right now, I've got my sales, that might hit the hot button for them to say, okay, well, no, I need this. You're right. I need this now. And moving forward, great. It's a great pathway in.
Now, our next model is what we'll refer to as a trade up.
Mhm.
A trade up is you're in a category where the current category averages $6 and you're 10. So now the retailer can say, well, 32 points of $10 is more than 32 points of $6. But you have to be able to convince the buyer that you're going to drag those people up.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
by the way, of all the levers to get in, this is the easiest one
It really is.
because, and this is the one that most of our clients lean into,
Mhm.
and that is be the premium product.
Right.
Make the product better, have the attributes that other people don't have the better flavor, or have the better ingredients, or have the better performance.
Hmm.
Our client, Wax RX, is averages what, 37 or $38. It's an earwax cleaning product, so we'll call it $40
Hmm.
in a category that sells for 8 and 9.
Right.
and it's the number one seller in the country.
Right.
Now,
And
it's
that
number
is
one in the country because it's a better product with good advertising.
exactly, exactly. It really is a better product, right? It's not just a higher price product. It truly is a better product with a great support plan behind it.
And we're constantly promoting it.
Yes, because you have to. You have to.
So this is a great category if you can prove that you can move people up.
Right.
This
And this
is
is,
the $7 pasta sauce instead of the $2 pasta sauce.
yep,
But and here's the beauty of being the high price product. The beauty of being a high price product is typically, if you look at any category, the price span between top and bottom is 10x.
mhm,
So you've got $2 Aquanet hairspray, and you have $20 Sebastian hairspray. You've got $2 shampoo, you have $20 shampoo. So it's usually a 10x gap. Now, not always 10x, but oftentimes 10x. But the beauty of it is, even though the gap averages 10x, the cost to make the better unit averages 4x. So it costs you 4 times more to make your product than the cheaper product, but you can charge 10 times more for the product. Which means what? Not only do you have more profit, not only does the retailer have more profit, you now have the margin to go advertise.
right,
You can
right,
afford to promote this,
right.
where the thin
And
margin product can't afford the ad
can't do
campaign.
it. And we'll talk more about this, but the pressures and the programs that retailers are requiring from an advertising perspective through their retail media channels are increasing. So that margin is critical because these programs now are a requirement. You have to pay to play these things. So you have to ensure that you've got the dollars to support those activities, which frankly, for most brands, are not a profit center and do all of the advertising that really does drive the business and the velocities for you. But you need the margin to do it.
Now it's interesting because right now, when this is being recorded, we're still living in an era of increased cost of living.
Mhm.
And when we look through the IRI data and we look at sales, what we see right now is that private label is growing rapidly
Yep.
and premium is growing.
Yes. The middle is dying.
The middle is struggling. And
Hmm.
the reason is this, because today's consumer right now is not only making a decision between Ragu and Botticelli,
Hmm.
they're making a decision between Ragu and a tank of gas.
Right.
So they're counting their dollars, they're counting their
Hmm.
pennies.
Yes.
And so what they're doing is they're trading down on the things that are not important.
Mhm.
So I'm going to take the store brand corn, I'm going to take the store brand green beans.
Okay.
I'm going to use I'll even buy the generic cereal, but I want to make sure I get my Botticelli pasta sauce. I want to make sure that I get the Bob Evans mashed potatoes. I'm going to buy the things that are important to me, which will be the premiums, and I'll skip the middle of the road and I'll trade down to the bottom on all the other commodity items.
I'll compromise on the commodity. That is what they're doing.
So your goal as a marketer is to never be a commodity,
Hmm.
because commodities are nothing but a price game.
Yes.
All commodities can be shopped down. And when we say
Yeah.
commodity, that means the consumer sees the category as equal.
Right.
I'll
Exactly.
give you an example of this category, of a category we worked in, the anti-itch category.
Yeah.
So the brand leader was Cortisone 10,
Mhm.
but the biggest seller was store brand. And the reason is because store brand was 10% cortisone.
Same stuff.
So people would look at it and they look across the shelf, everybody's cortisone.
Right.
So why should I pay for the premium when everything looks to be the same?
Exactly. Doesn't make sense.
Now we came in and disrupted the category and because we brought something in that wasn't cortisone.
Right. It was an innovative technology,
and charged more than the cortisone.
which then validated the technology in the consumer's eyes because how could it be way better but the same price? That our brains can't rationalize that.
So let's go to the third
Well,
pathway
there's
in.
one last thing I wanted to
Oh,
add to
sure.
this as a caution. Because
Hmm.
we've seen this with a couple brands, Mark, which is it starts with having a higher price, right? But you also do not take the risk of saying, hey, I've got a higher price when I'm comparing to this other product. But then when you actually look at the purchase patterns of the consumer, that this one may be double the price, but they buy it a third of the amount. So as a retailer, I'm actually losing money even though you're a high price. You can't have that happen. That
Hmm.
so you need to ensure not only you understand the velocity and purchase patterns of your product if it's a higher price, because then that's where the margin can come into play, right? And also customer lifetime value is also going to be very important when you're trying to support that most of the time, to your point, Mark, right? It is more of a one-to-one, and so it's not an issue. But I just want to caution everyone, depending on the category that you're in, you have to ensure that your velocities are still within the same range as the lower price product, because over the long term, the buyer's not dumb. They can do math. So make sure that you can prove that you really are going to be making them more money. It's not just a higher ring initially.
All right, now let's go to our third and last road in.
Hmm.
The third and last road in is the new money path.
Yep.
So, what is the new money path? The new money path is this. I'm going to give you a comparison. Let's say that I make a new innovative energy drink. So, we know that the majority of people who are buying in the energy drink category right now are probably between 16 years old and probably 40, 35 or 40.
Yeah.
So there's your energy drink window. And we can see this by looking at the energy drinks because they're called Rain and Monster and Death and all these outrageous names to try, Red Bull, Venom, because we're trying to out crazy the last crazy. So you can very quickly see who the demographic is by just the naming and the packaging and everything. And all of a sudden you come up with a new energy drink that is for 55 plus. Now, if you can establish, if you can establish that the 55 plus community indeed wants to have an energy drink, step one. Step two, you have the attributes of what this 55 plus crowd would want in an energy drink, which is probably not something called Venom,
Right.
and that you have the marketing and the capabilities of letting this 55 plus audience know it exists. Now you're a new money brand because you can now explain to the buyer, I'm going to bring a demographic to this assortment in your store who normally never shops this assortment. So now all of a sudden, I've got this 1834 piece of shelf in my store that 55 plus is now starting to shop. Well, that's awesome.
Right.
You're getting more people to come to that part of the shelf. So this is the other route in. Now, so in some cases, people can do this.
Mhm.
You might do this because my example for the energy drink. You might do it because we've come up with a way of appealing to a particular ethnic group who normally is not addressed in the category. Maybe we've added, maybe we have a product that we've added Spanish language to a crowd who feels that the category doesn't speak to them.
Right. Or it's a food item that you've added a certain flavoring profile or something to that effect.
Or we've added a strong scent to a household product that appeals to a particular demographic.
Right.
So if we can do things where we can expand the demographic, now we have another argument. But here's the bottom line. If you do not trade me up, expand the category, or bring me new people, you're probably not getting in my store.
Mm-mm. There's no reason for me to bring you in my store because I already know what I have. So, it's good enough. On to the next thing.
Now, there is, as with everything, there is a wild card.
Always.
And here's the wild card. The wild card is trending. So I'll give you an example of trending. Trending is simply this. You just launched a killer direct response TV campaign and you're killing it. You're spending $500,000 a week on TV. You're selling $1 million a week of a particular new product that may even be similar products on the shelf, but you have just created a hot trend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, if you've created a hot trend, okay, now you got a shot.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind, you didn't get in telling people I will be a hot trend.
Right.
You got in because you are a hot trend,
Exactly.
which means you did a ton of sales and a ton of business and a ton of work before you spoke to that retailer.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
if you're a hot trend, then getting into retail is not a big challenge because all retailers want to take advantage of whatever is hot at the moment.
Right. But like you said, you got to prove it. You
Right.
have to prove it. And then, because then the other aspect of it too is you're if you're part of we'll say a hot trend, so you're part of it, well, then you have to remember that you are probably not the only product or brand trying to pitch this retailer. So you have to prove that you're the best at that point because they may have other options that they can choose from.
So a hot trend would be a good example would be Lumi.
Mm-hmm.
So Lumi started a direct-to-consumer trend on deodorant you could apply anywhere
Yep.
instead of just armpits.
Yep.
And their whole pitch, it's a whole body deodorant, use it on pits, privates, so on and so forth.
Yep.
Launched on TV, sold a lot of product. Now they're in retail because, and think about it, not only were they a hot trend, they were also an expander at the same time.
Yes. Yep. Well, so what they did, right, is if now you're talking whole body deodorant, well, people are going to use it more, therefore you just increase velocity. So it's not just going under your pits. If it's a spray, it's pits, it's all these other areas, which means people are going to buy more of the stuff more often now.
And the
So
sales pitch trips me out, by the way, because it says you don't have to shower for 3 days.
look, I don't understand it personally, but it's okay. I don't have to. I don't buy it.
Yeah, that
But
one trips me out.
yeah, it's a little rough. But also, like you said, now the Mandos and now all the big brands now are coming out with whole body deodorant now, so they're all following suit, but they're the ones that started the trend, and retailers couldn't deny it.
And that's kind of the thing. The other, as I said, when we talked about the idea of category expanding, um, we did category expanding several times. When first we did it when we came out with dry mouth mouthwash.
Hmm. Yeah,
We expanded the category because we resolved a medical issue.
right.
Then we ran out with Smart Mouth with 12 hours fresh breath because now we expanded the category because no such thing existed as a mouthwash that lasted for 12 hours. So these are ways of expanding. But regardless, if you don't follow one of these three paths or just be an on fire item, you're not going into brick and mortar.
No, it's not going to happen, and it's on you to prove it. I want to make sure that whoever's listening, this is the big takeaway. Understand these three pathways and also understand that it is on you to prove that you belong on that shelf. So if you have the capabilities, you have the partners, go in there and already identify. here's your dog, right? Buyer, here's your loser. I can already see it. Now let me show you how I can, through one of these three pathways, that I can make you more money, and that whichever one you pick, great, this is the way I do it. I can show you I can. Here's my advertising campaign that shows you that I understand retail. So it's not just D2C. I understand retail, and this is how I'll support it. Go in there and have something right in, drop it right, have that effect. So when they walk away, they go, okay, well, how could I say no? This is a no-brainer, but that's on you to do that work. And remember that it's not just on you as an individual. This is why you build great teams. This is why you go find advertising partners to understand the space. This is why you partner with great retail buyers who know the buyer, have the relationships, have that data, right? This is why the team is so critical, because when you combine those specialties and then you who know your product and your business and can help shape the whole, that's when magic can happen. And that's when you really have success.
Well, thanks, Justin. Thanks, everybody, for the time today. I hope this was helpful to you. Our goal, again, is we're just trying to educate people in this industry so that you're successful. And this goes back to, if you haven't listened to the 26 rules, the 3 podcasts, go back and listen to them, because if you follow all 26, you will be successful. The more of the 26 you break, the less your odds of being successful. That's it for today for CPG Insiders. We'll see you on the next episode. By the way, if you enjoyed today's show, make sure you go wherever you get your podcast, leave us a 5-star review. And if you're not subscribing, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you on the next show. If you're looking to greatly increase sales on your CPG product, don't hesitate to contact us at Jekyll and Hyde Advertising and Marketing. By the way, the only advertising agency with a guaranteed result. Just go to jekyllhydeagency.com or feel free to give us a call at 800-500-4210.